a lot of people who have never bought a note before are buying pools of notes, and then they're turning around and selling them to unsuspecting people, and they're representing that they are good notes, and they are not good notes.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com.
Hello and welcome to the RPOA Note Buying Panel discussion. We have a great group of experts up here today who will help us understand the difference between performing and non-performing notes, the challenges of investing in notes, and specific examples of real wins and real losses that they've experienced. We will also be opening up the floor for Q&A for any questions that you might have. And right now I'd like to introduce our expert panel, starting with Donna Bauer. Donna is a trainer and coach who has done every type of real estate transaction. She's bought, sold, she's done leasing, everything having to do with real property, and she's also done every type of note deal, whether it be performing, non-performing, seller financed, or anything in between. And she will tell you that hands down, she prefers paper over property any day of the week. Donna will also be the featured speaker this morning, so make sure you hang around after this. Donna will be talking. You've got a couple hours to talk about note buying, and you definitely do not want to miss that. Gene Chandler, right here in the middle. Gene has 46 years of investing experience, and he is the asset manager for Chandler and Chandler Financial, which specializes in buying one-off and large and small pools of distressed assets directly from banks, hedge funds, and private equity groups. Now, Gene was a guest on the podcast, episode number 80, and I was so impressed by our conversation that I ended up investing with Gene, and together we've purchased many performing and non-performing notes together. Kyle Zimpleman is also a note investor with a mission of helping distressed homeowners stay in their homes. Kyle is the president and CEO of Expand Capital Group, and he purchases distressed mortgages throughout the United States. He also started a fund to help passive investors invest in the space. And Kyle was a guest on episode 151. Donna, I want to start with you. Now, I know your emphasis right now is on purchasing performing notes. Can you explain the difference to us of what is the difference between a performing and non-performing note? And why do you prefer performing notes?
Okay. The difference between a performing and non-performing note is the performing notes are paying on time. And the non-performing, obviously, they are not making their payments. I have done all of those. In fact, 15 years ago, I was majorly focusing on the non-performing notes. Hands down, no question about it, I prefer the performing seller carrybacks. I also create notes. I do anything having to do with notes, but my big focus is on flipping seller carryback notes. And the reason is I had a full staff 15 years ago, and we ran a pipeline of over 50 deals at a time, and we were rocking and rolling. But I realized it was like it owned me. I had no time to be with my family. I got new grandkids. And so for me, especially, I like being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I don't like having a bunch of employees. So I can make more money just flipping seller carrybacks, and I have none of the headaches of ever owning the property or dealing with distressed homeowners. So that's why I prefer flipping seller carrybacks.
And what do you see as some of the risks of investing in non-performing notes?
Oh,
And what is a non-performing note?
okay. A non-performing note typically is when it is the borrower is 90 days late, then it's considered non-performing. And the problem with it is there are so many different exit strategies. When you buy a non-performing note, you might intend that you're going to modify it and keep the borrower in the house. And then you go over to the house and they're long gone. And now you've got a whole different game plan. So you have to be prepared to handle whatever comes up. And so I don't like that. I don't like that that you can buy the note, expect one thing, get something else. I don't like dealing with the properties. And for a long time, my thing was helping people. And I love to help people, don't get me wrong. But it is very depressing sometimes, and it was just, it was overwhelming. Even with a full staff of people, I just felt like it consumed me.
All right, thank you. Gene, you and I have invested in a number of performing and non-performing notes. And given that non-performing notes are riskier, and given what Donna just said, why is it that we are buying non-performing notes?
When you're looking at the note and you're looking at the people behind it, the situations, the discounts that you can buy these from. Sometimes you can buy a $60,000 note. I mean, they've got a $60,000 payoff. And you can see some sporadic payments in there, or they were paying real good and then they just stopped. And anyway, it's a non-performing note. And sometimes you can buy those for as little as $25,000, $20,000, $10,000, depending on the seller. And now you're going to take that and work at it. I look at this stuff, what is the worst case scenario? What she's talking about, you go over there, it's empty. So what is this property worth if it's empty? What is this property worth as an REO? How much is it going to cost you and all that stuff? So you, the law of averages, you can take and get 80% of them reperforming. So your investment went from 10, 15, 20,000 to now 60,000. A lot of these are 8% interest rate, 9, 10%. And so your interest rate is on $60,000, but yet you've only paid 10. So your ROI is pretty great. And when you get that reperforming, actually you can take that reperforming note, hold it for 6 months to a year. I don't know how long we ought to talk about that a little bit. How long you own it from 6 months to a year, and then you can sell it on a pretty vast market that's out there that buys paper, that buys performing paper. Say I sell it to somebody for 45, and I've only held it for 10 months, 12 months. So I paid 25, I sold it for 45, I took payments for that amount of time. So my return on investment is pretty great. And the fact is, bad things happen to good people. And so I'm dealing with somebody right now that their wife has gotten sick. And so I'm kind of just carrying through the whole thing. She's getting better, but it was a real hit for them. And so things happen. I'm just going to back off and be kind, and that they're going to get me paid up. They've had one other incident where they've had to do that. The tax returns are coming back right now. So there's a lot of little factors that you look at when you're doing it. But I found that actually a non-performing note I can make more money on than a performing note. Surprisingly enough, it depends on the asset and then the area. I've purchased notes that I purchased it for the land, not the really crappy house. They sold it because it was a really crappy house. I looked at it and thought, I can get this for $5,000, and that land is worth at least $90,000, because the next door neighbor had his put up on the corner, and he didn't have enough room. So I knew that I was going to have to put these two together. Somebody'd have to put them together. So mine's worth 90. He had his put up for 450,000, and he didn't have enough land, so they were going to have to buy my land. And so I've sat on that a little while. We've had some gas stations look at it and stuff, but anyway, so there's a number of different things. So are all non-performing mortgages good? No. Sometimes you get spanked.
Kyle, I know that you invest in both types of notes, performing and non-performing, and you've also invested in buy and hold property, and you've done some rehabs and flips and whatnot. Why do you prefer investing in paper over investing in property?
Right. Well, I prefer now to invest in paper because of the cycle of the market right now being so high that it's hard to find value. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of loose money again. So I started back right here in Grand Rapids. I was doing college rentals in 2001, ripping up carpets, redoing hardwood floors, dealing with the tenants, dealing with the toilets, dealing with the neighbors, dealing with termites, dealing with bed bugs, frozen pipes, sewers, you name it. Anybody that's owned property for a period of time has had issues with it. And there's a lot of variables when you have a property. So it's a hands-on investment. Yeah, you can get a management company and that's going to save some time and effort. But for me, it's what we're trying to do as investors is we're looking at income streams, right? So whether that's, hey, I want to buy a McDonald's stock and can they sell enough McDonald's hamburgers and I'll eventually make money. I have no control over those variables. But if I have a rental property, I have all these other variables that get in the way of me getting that money at the end of the deal. I've had years sometimes where we made nothing on houses. We had to put a roof on a house. We've had vacancies. We've had a lot of, you name it, things happen. So we're trying to get that cash flow stream is what we're all trying to do, right? So what's the easiest way to get that cash flow stream? And I can't find a better one than loans. I mean, if you have a performing loan, like Donna and Gene will tell you, it is gold. Like, you just get the mailbox money. I mean, how many times has Bank of America, have you guys talked to Bank of America if you have a loan with them? If you make your payments, nobody hears from you, right? So it's a beautiful thing. So, if you have 10 rental properties or you have 10 loans, you could go 10 years without having an issue with those 10 loans. 10 rental properties, you might be able to go 10 days before someone's calling you or something. I dealt with a lot of college rentals, so we had neighbors going, hey, there was a big party last night. I'm like, okay, well, hopefully they'll clean up the cans outside, whatnot. So it's the do-it-once philosophy, and if you do it once correctly with, what we try to do is we'll create our own notes too. So you buy the property, and rather than make it a rental, why not sell it as a land contract or give them a mortgage if they're putting enough money down? Then it's their issue, right? Until it's not. At some point out of those 10 loans, you might have one to deal with, but it could be years before you have to deal with it. And you have a service company that handles it. So loans can be a very lucrative, and it gives you the time and to do other things. So you're not just tied down with a rental property. So that's what I like about it. As long as you have equity. I mean, that's the key. So if you don't have equity, you're playing a riskier game, because a lot of people go, well, I don't want to own a loan because of the mortgage meltdown and all the stuff that happened to banks. Well, banks had to loan out the money, right? And they loaned it out at 100% of value or overvalue. They gave it to borrowers that shouldn't have got the loans, and their appraisals were junk. Me being in this business on both sides, I know what the house is really worth. I know what it's going to cost for me to fix it up. So if I do take it back, I know what I'm dealing with. So, that's why I'm doing it now. Now, if it was 2010, and I could look back, I would be buying a lot of houses right now, right? Because of appreciation. You don't get appreciation with a loan because somebody else is going to get that appreciation.
So one of the things, Gene and Kyle, I know we've talked about this. Donna, you and I haven't necessarily talked about this, but we've talked about challenges in the note buying market. We don't want to make it seem like this is an easy, get rich quick overnight kind of thing. There are challenges, there are difficulties. And I want to just kind of go down the line, starting with you, Donna. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the market today?
Well, since I'm primarily focusing on the performing notes, that's pretty smooth, and I'm doing very well with that. But one of my challenges that my students have is all of the misinformation that is going on out there, and a lot of people who have never bought a note before are buying pools of notes, and then they're turning around and selling them to unsuspecting people, and they're representing that they are good notes, and they are not good notes. And it really disturbs me. I had one student who signed a contract to buy a note. Now, this person was telling them, I'm an expert, and represents themselves as being an expert. And the note was one of the worst notes I've ever seen. He was not going to allow her to close at a title company, wanted her to wire the money before they closed, and he had 6 months to deliver the documents. Do you know what can happen in 6 months? You know, if you don't have your assignment recorded? And so, she couldn't add her name to the hazard insurance policy until after the closing. Would you drive a car off of a lot without insurance? I mean, it's same difference. And wouldn't allow her to balance the escrow account first. I mean, it was just, I had about 10 different things. And this person was representing themselves as a knowledgeable expert in the field and just preying on unsuspecting people. And in that particular case, it was intentional. But a lot of times it's because of lack of knowledge that they are buying pools, but they never had experience in dealing with the individual note. How can you buy a pool of notes when you've never even dealt with a note before? And so that's my pet peeve right now. And I kind of get up on a soapbox about it because you need to know who you're buying from. Notes it's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful market for notes. And by the way, I didn't mean to put down buying non-performing notes. I absolutely did not. You can make a lot of money on them. I have. It's just, I was younger then, and it was great to have a big office and all of that. But at my stage of life now, I like being able to work from home, work when I want to, take off for a couple weeks, and that's just where I am. But truly, you can make good money, whether it's non-performing notes or performing, either one. But know who you're buying from. Learn how to do your due diligence. And if somebody tells you they won't close at a title company or attorney's office, run.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com.
I have to agree, in the non-performing note world, Gene and I have definitely noticed a lot of inefficiencies in that market and a lot of ambiguity when you buy these notes as to what the proper title work is. And it's a lot of stuff that you really have to know what you're doing to work through. Gene, can you address that as well?
Yeah, a little bit of it. There's some, you've got A, B, C, D, and I buy them all, depending, a lot on the price, whether I'm going to buy an A, B, C, or D. And so, yeah, can you buy junk mortgages that are a lot of problems, and we call it, they have hair on them? Yeah. You can do really, really well at them, but they're a lot of work. If you're going to mitigate your work, then you're going to have to buy performing notes. And what I've seen in the industry is people that have been in it for a while, like Donna, will take and start to shift. And I've started my shift about a year ago, I think, and started buying. I actually been buying pools with, buy a pool of 20, 30. That I'm actually after the 10.
And Gene, let me interrupt. When you say pool, that means multiple notes. You're not just
Yes.
buying one note at a time. You're buying a group of notes.
A group of notes. So you're kind of doing a quick search of all those notes, but you've got 10 of them that you really want. But you can't have those 10. You have to buy all 30 of them. And so, so you're going to look at the whole package. You're going to focus on the 10. What can you get for the other 20? Can you sell them off, or do you want to get the other ones reperforming? Do you want to take the time to get those other ones reperforming? Do you have the time? Do you have the people behind you? That's where your servicers come in, your attorneys come in, your different support systems that you've got setting up behind you. But it's, like you said, you've got to hire people. I'm putting a young lady on next week. And so to ramp it up a little bit. And a lot of it is I found out a couple of these pools that I've purchased, and I purchased them for these performing loans over here, that there's a few of them in here that are really good. And in the past, I would have really focused and kept these notes, or, actually focused in to buy these. What do I have with the people that I've already got on board? Will these people take care of these? Will these people get these reperforming, modify these loans, work on these loans that get them performing? And so I've got, through a number of different phone calls, emails, and meetings, got another 15 of them that we're going to get worked out. Now, I bought this pool of 30 that with 10 in mind. We're liable to have 20, 25 of these performing in another 6 months, which is really stellar. And the other ones, I've already got some people to purchase them at a reasonable price with a small amount of profit, and we'll just shed those. But performing, we started to really turn and to really start focusing more and more on performing, because there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much you can do.
Kyle, what kind of challenges have you been facing in the market today?
Probably a reason why everybody's here in this room here today too is deal flow. There's not a lot of properties out there that look attractive right now. I mean, the values have gotten up so high that if you look at that versus renting it out, your risk is very high right now. Your cap rates are getting compressed. Interest rates have gotten really low, and money has gotten loose again because everyone's got the money now and we don't have the product. So, which is the big problem, right? So that's kind of the issue we're dealing with. The last correction during the mortgage meltdown, there was a massive deleveraging of mortgages. So all this stuff was out there, and at that time, I was just going to buying frozen houses here in Grand Rapids like everybody else, and I was running out there to the bank and trying to get the house, and we would put the earnest money the same amount as the purchase price with no contingencies, no way out. And so that was risky, but we knew the value was there in the properties. That's no way we would ever do that again right now. There's too much competition, and other people are, how high can we go? And at some point, these numbers aren't going to work out for people. So the next correction, when it does come, we're probably not going to see it with everybody's neighbor's house getting foreclosed on again. The banks aren't going to let that happen. The governments aren't going to let that happen. They're all ready for it. Everybody's ready for the next correction. Everybody's been talking about it for years. I've been calling it since 2017. Eventually, I'll be right. So it's right now, when that does happen, these banks are going to sell off these notes on the secondary markets, so they wash their hands of it, so they don't have the bad name like they did before. So we didn't foreclose on it. This guy did. So you're not going to see the foreclosed sign up, and we're not going to see this huge amount of inventory again. It's going to happen behind the scenes. So that's why you want to learn about how this side of this business works, because you won't see the opportunities other people are going to see. So that's the challenge is it's difficult right now. So we have to create our own paper right now. We have to create our own deals. We got to think outside the box. A lot of private lending. So we do private lending, which then instead of us having to find the deals, somebody else is finding the deals for us, and we just make sure the math works where we have a lot of protective equity in case there is a correction. In the lending in that lending world right now too, that is getting out of hand too, because a lot of first-time buyers are getting loans from companies like Lending Tree and Angel Oak, and it's 12% loans with 5 points on top of it. They got a year to come up with the money, and they get foreclosed on because they've overpaid. And then they don't know how much rehab has been done, and there's no way for them to get out of the deal. And so I think that's the canary in the coal mine is this fix and flip loan market. So that's where we're finding value. It's called the non-QM, non-qualified mortgage market. We're finding that there because they're not regulated as much by the banks. They don't have shareholders to answer to. They have just investors. And so that market is probably going to be the first one to fall, and that's where I'm finding value right now.
Are you starting to see cracks in that market?
I'm finding value. Yeah, we bought a pool in Ohio and a couple other areas, and the prices we got for them were probably 2010 pricing. And so I was actually surprised that we won the bid on it. We actually were the only bid. So nobody else bid. Never mind.
We'll erase that from the podcast.
Yes.
I'd love to get a specific example, quick specific examples of both a win and a loss that you've each had recently.
In the fall, I did a really cool deal. It's one of my favorite ones I've ever done. I was going to flip a seller carryback. I did my due diligence. When I go to close, I always call the borrower. Turned out the borrower was a 92-year-old lady and her son and his wife. And as I went through things, there was a 3-year balloon on this note. They revealed to me that when they signed the note, they had no idea there was a balloon, and that they had no idea how they would be able to refinance and pay it off. So normally that would be a deal killer. You're not going to buy a note if you know they're not going to pay the balloon. But instead, I went back to the note seller, and I said, they didn't know this, and I cannot buy it because if they default and we go before a judge is going to rule in their favor, and I won't be able to collect. I will, however, buy it if you can lower the price on it. And what I did was I popped the balloon. I figured out if I fully amortize it and just let them pay out, what do I need to buy it for? And he lowered the price, and I bought the note. I did it inside my IRA, put $29,000 in my IRA without any of my own cash. And now I'm helping them to refinance. And what's really cool, the best part of all, is I was a godsend to them. They were sweating bullets on what they would do about this 3-year balloon, and now they don't have to worry about it. And my bad deal? Yeah. My bad deal was a non-performing note I bought, and I bought this little house for $10,000, and it took me over a year to get the deed from the portfolio seller. And in that time, we had a squatter. I couldn't do anything with it. The furnace and water heater and everything was stolen out of the property. There was water damage. I wound up selling up to the city for almost nothing.
Gene, what about you? A quick win and a quick loss?
Recently, with the JV, we bought a property in my area, and with the intention of we're going to have to foreclose. Well, we paid, I think, $50 for it. I knew it was worth $115, and her balance was, I think, somewhere around $85. And she said, "Well, I've got money in my IRA. I'm just going to pay you up." I'm like, but it was, I don't know, $5 or $7 grand. And so that took our initial $50,000 down to 45, we'll just say that. And she's paid it down. Well, we've got some more money back, but now I've waited a year. I've worked with her to make sure that her credit was okay. She had to get a credit card. It's like, okay, we'll get a credit card and get your credit up, and it will do a year. So she did a year's payments, and she had some choppy stuff before then. Went through a divorce, and now tomorrow I'm closing on her property. They're going to write me a check for $83,000.
So she's refinancing.
She's refinancing,
paying you off.
and we were looking at a foreclosure, which is rough, and taking that and reselling the property. But now she gets to stay in the property. We get a really good chunk of change in a matter of, I think, about 18 months. I've worked on this. In a matter of 18 months, we get a really big chunk of change on that one, and a good return. So let's see, a loss.
Yeah,
Got a couple of them. I bought a pool of loans. I give you this as real quick. I bought a pool of loans and of close to 100 assets, and some of the assets had taxes that were delinquent and in forfeiture, and we lost one completely. It was gone. By the time I was able to get the deeds and get everything done and get everything recorded, it was lost to the state of Alabama. So so that was one. So you run into that stuff. You got that much coming in at one time. It's a monster. And so I've got that one, and then we've purchased houses that we're looking at everything. You don't see the inside of these houses before you buy them. You're basically you're a lender. You don't have the rights that the homeowner does, the borrower, and so you don't see the inside of these houses. Well, we bought this one in Grand Rapids, and this was all right. We're going to do this, and we get a deed in lieu from the borrower. I walk into the house, and I couldn't believe how bad the foundation had warped this house out. They didn't have any gutters on the house, so the water would come down. And of course, here, water goes into the ground and it freezes, and it shoved that foundation all over the place. And so and the city was in there doing, making all kinds of messes and fines and all that stuff. And so we bailed on that one. We lost, I'm thinking,
we lost
only
about
lost a couple
$1,400.
$1,400, is that what we did?
Yeah, at the end of the day.
So, I mean, there's other ones. I had one in Chicago where I had 5 people in the chain die. 5. I'm thinking, yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in that chain.
And the lady that owned it, I'm thinking, what are you, a voodoo queen or something? I'm like, man, alive, I got to get rid of it. So I sold it off real quick. I'm thinking, that's enough of this.
Kyle, what about you? A win and a loss?
So I'm just going to give a loss we turn into a win. So we'll just do that situation. So yeah, we buy pools as well. We bought performing notes, which is part of our strategy is, some high interest performing notes. They're low balance, so you're going to be dealing with low balance. So it was, we bought a pool, and this property in particular, I bought and was excited about it. We talk about these income streams we're looking at. They had paid for 5 years every single month, EFT, boom, boom, boom. The service history was clean. They'd never even said a peep about anything other than just making their payments. We had people drive by the property. It looks like it was okay. It's low balance, so it's not going to be like spectacular. It's not a mansion or anything. So I'm like, this is a great loan. So we bought that one with the rest of the properties, and we got one payment, and then they went dark, and it was like, okay, what's going on? So we try to get the servicer on it. 3 or 4 months go by. There's a longer story to it, but I know we have some time. We don't have a lot of time. It involves lots of pit bulls and everything else. But so long story short, we get the house we work out a deed in lieu, which is a good strategy for people who are way behind on their payments. A deed in lieu is basically cash for keys, in that world. So not only do they owe you money, but you're going to give them money to leave, which is nice of you. So we did that, and it's one of those houses you walk into as an investor, and you would walk right back out. You'd shut the door the second you open it, going, nope. However, we own it because it's REO at this point because we got the deed. So we have to do something with this property now. So we had got a really good discount on the property, which is key to these things because if you don't, you could be over leveraged as well. Not over leveraged, but overvalued. So what we did is you have options now. So either I have to spend the money to fix it up and get everything that was wrong with it fixed up and hopefully make a few bucks. I could just put it on the market, MLS as an REO, and hopefully get some activity there. We decided not to do that route. We have like an investor network that we send out stuff sometimes just to kind of keep it, because once you get the public in and out of these houses there's a lot of other issues that come about, and realtors, and I'm a real estate broker too, but realtors, whatever else, it can be an issue. And so long story short, an investor comes along and says, we're offering it at 50 grand. He said, I'll give you 40 grand cash. And so I go, okay, great. That's going to be a little low for me. And I knew that they didn't have a lot more money to fix it up, and I knew the thing is going to need another 30 grand worth of work. So we're into it for 30. We're trying to sell for 50. I said, hey, how about this? We sell it to you for 45,000. You give me 10 grand rather than 40 grand down. So we'll carry 10% over a year, give you time to fix it up. So now you have your money to fix it up. We've got a real low balance interest only loan, so they're paying like $300 a month. I've got this thing cash flowing. I don't have to do any work. The worst thing I have to worry about is paper cut. I'm not worrying about dealing with hammers and all this other stuff. My hands are very dainty nowadays, so, and we got it back on track. So that's how you take a loss to a win. And in this business, you have a lot of options when you have that. If you have a rental property and somebody trashes it, I had Davenport hockey team trash my house back in 2001. So it's great. I love Davenport, whatever else, but I'm just saying, houses get trashed, you got to pick them up, you got to clean them up. You don't have to do it in this business. You can get somebody else to do it.
Let's open it up to Q&A. Who's got a question here?
So my question is, can you explain some of the, your decision tree behind when you personally talk to a borrower or when you talk to them through your attorney or your service company?
Who are you directing the question to?
Well, I already answered the question by saying she always calls the borrower before she closes.
I would like to clarify, though, because I've been misquoted before. If you're buying a non-performing note or any notes from a bank, you cannot contact the borrower until after you purchase the note. That's very, very important. But I have a different way of getting my leads. What I do is I have a from the heart letter, I call it. I send out letters. I find the distressed homeowner first. I'm already communicating with them. And then I call the bank and say, hey, your customer, and then I work out either buying the note or doing a short sale. I don't do short sales anymore, but that's what I used to do. So that's how I'm able to talk to the homeowner before the bank. But if you're buying out of a pool, you cannot contact the borrower until after you own the note. It's very important.
Okay. So if you own a note, so I own a note. And so right now, I've never talked to the borrower. Everything goes through the service company. Are there situations where either Gene or Kyle, you or Donna, where you would reach out personally and, kind of sever that disconnected party?
I would never let the servicer do my negotiating and talking. Do you guys do that?
Occasionally, when I'm overwhelmed.
Well, I let the servicer handle up to the point where it's going south. If it's like, hey, they're not reaching, things aren't making progress, then I go, hey, here's who I am. I know you have no idea who I am, but I'm actually the owner of this note, technically, if it's a land contract, the property in a way, so I have the deed. What do you want to do? You know, that's my first thing I ask. What do you want to do? Like, do you want to stay here? Do you want to move? Do you want to work out a payment plan? What do you want to do? And put it in their hands. And I think I might know which note you're talking about too over there. So,
yeah, sometimes you do. There's certain criteria that you go by. I've actually got a thing on my phone that I can record my phone conversation. And in Indiana, I don't have to tell them that I'm recording. I can just press a button because I'm in Indiana, and only one person in the conversation needs to know that it's being recorded. I'm not sure about the laws in Michigan. I always ask, regardless, hey, can I record this? And I just punch my little button, and it's all recorded. When I hang up, it goes into my phone, and I'm able to have that. I've got plenty of dirt on Brian. Mm-hmm. And there's certain things you have to have on email. You can't contact them by email. My first one that I really that worked out really, really well. However, I did something that was gray. I contacted them on Facebook. That's a no-no. Totally a no-no. So there's a number of different no-nos. If I'd have told my attorney that, he would have just lost it. And sometimes it's just better if people have gotten aggressive, then I just let my attorney handle it. And if they say, well, I want an attorney or I want to go to court, you're done. You're like a cop now. You're done. You can only talk to them through their attorney. I like to work out, and I used to really like to work out my stuff when I was doing 1s and 2s and 3, and when I had a small amount. Now I work out these ones right here that you can kind of predetermine the mentality of the borrower, and some of the other stuff I let the servicing companies work out. It's a matter of how much time do I have now. I just had a servicer do some stuff for me and work out 2 loans just yesterday. Got an email, 2 loans, I thought. And we've only had this pool for 4 months. It doesn't seem like you think 4 months, you should have had more than that. Not really, because it sometimes takes 30 to 60 to 90 days to even get those boarded correctly, get the right paperwork in to where the servicing company can even start. We've only had this solidified, I call it, for 6 weeks. So in 6 weeks period of time, these people worked out 2 loans for me. Now they took them from junk loans, $5,000, $6,000 loans. Now these loans are worth $30,000, $40,000. Boom. I didn't have time to work those loans. Could I have worked those loans out? Absolutely. Did I have time? No.
This question is for Donna. Basically on the solar carrybacks, what are your monthly marketing costs for that project?
The monthly marketing costs vary depending on whether you're doing it part-time or full-time. The big cost is if you elect to do direct mail, and you can buy names for 15 to 20 cents a piece, and then you've got the marketing, or the stamps and everything. I have some people that are just sending out 300 or 400 letters a month. Other people who are sending out 1,000 a month. So that really depends. But if you don't want to have that kind of cost, you can networking to me is like the best source, which you can do pretty much free by going to events like this and talking to other investors and whatnot. So it really depends on, I think it's a good idea for you to have brochures and invest some money up front in business cards, brochures, and that kind of thing. So that's the beauty of the notes. You can tailor make it to what you want. I would get a website, have a website.
Well then, how much would all this cost?
If you're going to send, if you're going to send out 500 letters and let's say $1,000, if you're going to do 500, well, that would be up front. So 500 up front to get a website and print some brochures, or put your brochures together. But each month would just be the cost of the postage if you're doing the direct mail. The networking is what's really big, and we use Craigslist, which is free, or $5 a city type of thing. It's very nominal. So you can really do it on a shoestring budget if you want, or if you want to build it up and go whole hog, then it's however much you decide to do. I'm sorry if I don't mean to be vague, but it's across the board.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
It costs $300 to $500 to have those loans worked out by somebody else. So it's not that ridiculously high. So it was really, really cost effective for me to have those loans worked out.
My problem with that is I don't trust other people to work my stuff out because I would do a better job myself.
It is. It's really hard. It really
But if you don't have time and you're working yours and you can get them to do some others, then that's a win. But that frustrates me, the idea.
That's the truth. Especially when you're good at working them out.
Yeah.
So,
Stephen, I was on Brian's podcast. I've successfully purchased probably 300-400 sheriff sale properties, and I'm no longer want to do that. And so a pool fell into my lap through a local, I'll tell you, Habitat for Humanity in Muskegon County, and I successfully foreclosed on 50% of them, and No Servicing Center services the rest. Where do you find the next step to buy another pool of like 50 to 100? If you don't have the hedge fund contacts, do you recommend a site like DebtX, who sells like the FDIC stuff and a lot of the national banks?
It's networking. I go to quite a few events around the United States, and I'm one of those people where if somebody is not talking to anybody, I'll run over and, hi, what are you doing? What do you do? I meet somebody in an elevator. They got a tag on them. It's like, hey, what do you do? And I found I had two really good note pool sources that I found in Fort Lauderdale when I went down there just last month. So, or this month. It would have been this month.
The type of meetings he's talking about is one's called IMN, International Management Network or something. There's Noteworthy, there's Note Source, which is in Vegas. Paper Source, sorry. That's where you're gonna see people like people like here. If you're looking for property, there's probably a few people who are probably selling houses here too. So it's kind of a similar thing. You're just gonna find more of what you're looking for if you go to those type of events. If you're gonna try to work with a bank, there's service events, so you could be the guy that's not part of the bank, just at one of the the servicing company events, and be like, hey, by the way, I buy these things, if you guys come across a pool, that type of thing. Brokers, there's note brokers, like there's any
People
brokers.
really, excuse me.
Go ahead.
People really underestimate networking because it's not an exact science. And you guys have a little gold mine right here over this weekend. And I hope you have all brought business cards and you're talking to people, because chances are there's somebody right here in the room that is who you want to connect with.
Kind of on the opposite side of looking to buy pools. Notes are all new to me, actually, to your podcast a few weeks ago. And I looked at it as it was like you were just buying land contracts and taking other people's land contracts over. So as I've grown, so if you didn't want to get into it in like on a pool basis where you wanted to start looking at it like in onesie twosies, what's the best way to get into that? Is it just reaching directly out to distressed owners?
Yes and no. It's networking, but you've got to. There's some real scoundrels in this business. And so you've got to watch what you're doing. Honestly, get with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
A lot of people, like myself, I don't have a lot of time to teach people, but I've went to lunch quite a few times and talked to different people.
I eat lunch.
And so, yeah. And so, yeah. And it took me, I worked for 3 years before I was able to buy my first note. I mean, I looked and asked around and I did all kinds of stuff, and I finally found a fund that would sell notes. And I had enough of the language. Basically, I lied to them and said, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. I'm thinking, gosh, I hope they believe me. And I was able to buy a note from them, and it worked out really, really well. I was able to turn a profit in 5 weeks. I think I bought the note for $6,700 and sold it for $30,000. And I thought, man, this is a business I want to get into. And so the prices are up, now compared to what they were. There's a lot of people that you can get their books and tapes and stuff. Donna's got a lot of good stuff.
Thank you.
And so, people you can learn from and get yourself educated, understand a little bit more about the language and stuff like that. And then go from there. So.
What I do is I buy when I was doing non-performing notes, I bought the 30, 60, 90-day list, the mortgage list of people who are late, and I sent out what I call my From the Heart letter, saying, I understand you're behind in your mortgage, perhaps I can help. And that's how I got my leads, and it was on a one-by-one basis.
I want to thank all of our panelists here, Donna, Jean, Kyle. You guys did a great job. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.